Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Citizen Sports Talk, Caden Reinhardt, joined here with Jacob Smith. I don't think we're going to waste any time into getting into this week's football action. I mean, 101 points scored in the Floyd County-Carroll County game. Jacob, your opening thoughts from that game?
Really just a back-and-forth affair between the Cavaliers and the Buffaloes. Touchdown after touchdown after touchdown for both sides. Each team, Carroll County only failed to score on 2 drives, and those were at the end of the half. One at the end of the first half, they just kneeled it out, took it to the second half. Then in the second half, the one drive they didn't score was in the victory formation. And then for the Buffaloes, the one drive they didn't score was the opening drive of the game, a 3-and-out. And we kind of talked about during the broadcast Friday night, that was the difference in the ball game. You know, that one stop that Carroll was able to get just gave them the momentum and the advantage throughout the entire night. Carroll County did not trail at all in their win against the Buffaloes. So that was definitely a strong point that we talked about. Carroll County was able to take advantage of the Buffaloes in terms of getting the ground game going. 6 rushing touchdowns, and a lot of it was short yardage, just chunk by chunk by chunk, or piece by piece by piece, however you want to describe it. But they did have a couple touchdowns that were big plays that were defensive mistakes by the Buffaloes in terms of just identifying the ball carrier and stuff like that. But that's just kind of how this Carroll County offense is. And for the Buffaloes, if I were them, I wouldn't really worry too much about it. Yes, it's still frustrating that you let a team come into your home turf and put 50 on or score 50 on your defense, but at the same time, you don't really see an offense like this anywhere else out of the teams that you play. I mean, the closest thing that I would describe it to would be Patrick County's offense a few weeks ago when they played down in Stewart. But other than that, a lot of these teams play more spread, Glenver, Radford, so on and so forth. They play a more spread out offense, and Carroll County plays a more tight-knit with this split T. So me personally, defensively, it's obviously it happened. It's not too much I would fret about if I was, one of the coaches for the Buffaloes. Obviously, there's things to fix, but it's not going to make or break the season, if that makes sense. So, but the Cavaliers' offense did phenomenal. The Buffaloes' offense looked great as well. They had their way with this Carroll County defense as well. I mean, when you put up 49 points, you got to be doing something right offensively as well. So, like we talked about, that one stop that Carroll County got early made the difference down the stretch. And, Carroll County came away with this one 5-2. Floyd County loses their undefeated record, now dropped to 6-1 on the year. And both teams have games on the road next week. Carroll County plays at Radford on Thursday, and the Buffaloes play at James River on Friday next week. So, just looking at this game overall, I mean, it was a tough matchup for both sides, and here was my interview post-game with head coach for the Cavaliers, Seth Greer.
So joining me now, the winning head coach from this Week 8 battle between the Cavaliers and the Buffaloes, Coach Seth Greer. Coach, what did it mean to be back in Floyd tonight?
I love Floyd County. I love the kids. I saw a lot of people tonight. It was just good to see them. To be honest, when you go somewhere, you lose track of people and don't get to talk to them as much. And I have a lot of respect for a whole lot of people here. So it was great just to come back around. I wish Coach Bill was around. I'd like to see him too. Good memories here. I love the people here and the kids here. So it didn't. It's weird being on that sideline. I'll be honest with you. Yeah.
So, undefeated team for the Buffaloes, 6-0. What was the difference for you guys to pull off the upset win tonight?
We had a bye week, had some good time to prepare. I think our kids, I think sometimes we're a little underrated with what we do. But I'll be honest, Floyd's electric, man. This game could have went either way. We were scared to death. This, to me, if we played this game 100 times, I don't know if it goes 50-50. I don't know. I think our kids are just physical and like being in battle. That's it.
So transitioning to the next week, a short week playing on
sir.
Thursday night at Radford.
Yes, sir.
How does that change things for you guys with one less day of prep going to Radford?
Short prep with an athletic football team. We'll try to get in. Our kids are really good about film, and they like install and they like classroom time. So, we're going to have to go really fast on the classroom, get out on the field, and try to install. But now the good thing about what we do offensively is we do what we do, and our kids are getting better at it. So we might shorten some offensive time and focus more on the defensive alignments and things like that. Because just like Floyd, man, they're hyper athletic, and we are what we are. So,
Thank you, Coach.
great seeing you, Jake. Good seeing you.
Thank you, Coach.
Absolutely.
So looking at some other scores from around the region, Patrick County lost to Nelson County 35-7. Glenver stays undefeated as they defeated Radford at home 35-0. Martinsville took a close non-district loss against an old Piedmont district opponent in Tunstall 26-23. Appomattox defeated Dogwood district opponent Alta Vista 13-0. Chatham got their third win of the season with a 36-0 win over William Campbell. Gretna defeated Dan River 42-28, and Liberty lost against the Brookville Bees 52-8. And that's for Floyd County's region. So right now, Glenver, Gretna are the top two teams. They were both able to get wins. I don't know how the Buffaloes their playoff positioning will be affected with the loss tonight. They'll still get some points out of it, the rider points from Carroll and being a Class 3 school. And talking about the Cavaliers region, they got the win tonight, 52-49. Cave Spring lost 35-0 against Patrick Henry. Christiansburg defeated Hidden Valley 49-0. Pulaski County lost to Blacksburg 48-22. Lord Botetourt defeated Stanton River 28-21. Northside comes away with a big overtime win 24-23 against Franklin County. William Byrd lost 55-7 against William Fleming. And then Magna Vista stays undefeated this season with a 42-17 win over the Bassett Bengals. The Tunstall game I mentioned briefly earlier, 26-23 win over Martinsville. And then Abington defeated Central Wise with a 33-0 win for their second straight win, also coming off a bye as well. So definitely two competitive regions. I'm sure Carroll County may improve their position to be a playoff or have a home playoff game this week. They were the 6th seed, I believe, coming into this week. So we'll see what the big win against the Buffaloes does there. But any other thoughts that you'd like to share, Caden? Just kind of me briefly reading over some scores from around the regions for Floyd and Carroll.
Yeah, I guess all season leading up to this, it's been kind of looking forward to that big undefeated matchup maybe towards down the line between Floyd and Glenver. That's no more with the Cavaliers' victory tonight, finally nullifying the Buffaloes' season-long momentum. So now looking forward for the Buffaloes, I think just getting back in the win column is going to be important for them, and Carroll extending their now to look and build upon a win streak of their own after, the loss to Glenver, bouncing into the bye week, and then now coming away with the victory against the Buffaloes.
Yeah, I think kind of bouncing off your point, the Buffaloes have 3 difficult opponents coming up to finish the regular season. They travel to James River next week, which is probably the longest road trip of the season. Then they host Radford and Glenver at home to finish out the season, and back-to-back for Week 10 and Week 11. Those are 2 opponents that, when you look at the schedule, you always wanted to have Radford and Glenver at home. So the fact that they finished the season at home against those 2 opponents may benefit them. I think the home crowd could have played a factor, possibly, tonight, given the circumstances. There were some opportunities there for the Buffaloes late, but the Buffaloes defense wasn't really able to get that final stop. But for the Cavaliers as well, they travel to Radford next week. Short week, as mentioned with Coach Greer. They play on Thursday next week, the following Thursday against Martinsville at home, and then finish out the season at home against James River. So we'll see how, these two teams finish out the season. I think both teams are going to have a chance to make a run in the playoffs with how successful their seasons have been so far. But it's just only a matter of time, if you will, before we find out if they really can and do make that run. But I think we'll take it to a quick break. We'll give you a recap of some other sports for Floyd and Carroll County and give you the preview for all the sporting events coming up next week. You're watching Citizen Sports Talk here on CCTV Channel 20. All right, everybody, welcome back to Citizen Sports Talk. Jacob Smith with Caden Reinhardt. And Caden, I believe you have the update for us with the golf match this week as the golf team traveled to the state tournament on Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday they traveled up to Hobbs Hole, Tappahannock, and I guess this will be the last golf coverage update for Citizen Sports Talk 2025. I mean, state championship, they entered it, I believe, with a 77-1 record, entering 81-4, a great season all around for the Buffaloes with the 4th place finish in the state tournament. Shot .308 as a team, 24 over. Just went out. I was 11 strokes behind the tournament winners, Graham. They with the 297 finish. I mean, a great season for the Buffaloes all year. Only, again, 4 losses, 3 of them coming in the state tournament itself. And overall, over the whole season, they had 6 regular season victories over 3 different state champions this year.
Yeah, you kind of talked about, briefly, successful to get to that point, and I think that kind of shows the day that the Buffaloes golf team had on Tuesday. Like you said, 3 of the 4 losses come in the state tournament, so just an off day. It happens. Obviously, it's frustrating that it happens at the highest level of the competition here during the season, but a lot of it seniors, they'll probably go play collegiately somewhere, so definitely have an opportunity to bounce back. Some of the younger guys as well, they have an opportunity to bounce back as well next year.
I think that's definitely going to be the case for the golf team.
Yeah, so you talked about this will be the last time we wrap up golf or discuss golf. This may be the last time we discuss volleyball too, at least for Floyd County, unfortunately, as they were 6-9 coming into this week, and they lost all 3 of their matches this week. They lost at Blacksburg 3-0. They lost at home versus Carroll 3-1, and then lost at James River 3-1 to give them 3 back-to-back losses in their matches. That drops them to 6-12 on the year. They were kind of already on the outside looking in terms of postseason aspirations. So I don't know if we'll see the Lady Buffs in the regional tournament or not for volleyball. And for the Lady Cavaliers, they had 2 games this week as well. Obviously, the 3-1 win over Floyd County for varsity on Tuesday, and then they lost at Radford 3-1. So their record is now 13-8 with their final 2 games against Martinsville at home and James River at home. And sorry to bounce back and forth, but the Lady Buffs finished the season at home against Radford and Glenver to end their regular season as well. If there's anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, as maybe gloomy as the season's been for the Buffaloes volleyball team, the steps are there in the right direction. I mean, it's definitely going to be a multi-year kind of turnaround for them. Last year, only 2 victories. So, I mean, this year has definitely been a positive for them, I'd say.
Yeah, I think, obviously, we've talked about it before, rebuilding a program, or rebuilding is a more collegiate or professional term, but, establishing a program at the high school level, it takes time. I mean, what Coach Cromer was able to do, his culture over to the Buffaloes, it happened fast, and it was partially due to a large senior class last year and a well-developed group of kids this year. But, sometimes it works both ways. Sometimes it happens really fast, and sometimes it just takes some time. I think sometimes it just, you need time to coach, you need time to develop, and you need time to, Laura Allen's the first-time head coach for the Lady Buffs volleyball, so she's trying to figure out what she's doing as a head coach, let alone what she's doing as a leader of a program and like how she develops the players and stuff like that. So definitely, obviously you're going to finish up the season competing and trying to perform as much as possible in these final 2 games and possibly get in the playoffs. I don't know where the region standings are there, but, finish a good season. It's improving from last year, and that's at the end of the day what you want out of a program. Am I wrong with that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the outlook that you need to have for the season for the Buffaloes.
Yeah, but adding to that just briefly, they only had 1 senior last year. They have 4 this year. So we'll see how a little bit of transition of talent may affect them next year. And the same thing could be said kind of looking at the Buffaloes last year. They had a large senior class, like 10, 11 guys graduate in the class of 2025 for the football team, and how they've been able to recoup or respond to those losses through graduation. But, it's just part of the game, and definitely will be interesting to see how things play out next year. But I believe we'll finish the night off. You got the weekly schedules coming up for us for both the Cavaliers and the Buffaloes.
Yeah, we'll go over the Cavaliers' schedule next week first. They're off till Tuesday. Cross country has a district meet in Daleville, boys and girls for that. And then as well on Tuesday at home, their volleyball varsity and JV plays Martinsville. Then Wednesday, their JV football team will be taking on Radford at home. And then following to that Thursday for their varsity football team traveling on the road to Radford to take on the Bobcats there, as well as their volleyball junior varsity and varsity hosting James River for their final match of the regular season there on Thursday as well. And then for the Buffaloes this weekend, they actually have some cross-country action heading to Mechanicsville, boys and girls, heading right outside of Richmond for their meet this weekend. And then that'll propel them into their district championship, of course, like we mentioned, with the Cavaliers down there in Daleville, as well as they'll have varsity and JV volleyball action that day, taking on Radford at home in the Allen Cantrell Court in the new gym. And then Thursday for the Buffaloes, October 23rd, it will be varsity and JV volleyball taking on Glenver, with junior varsity football taking on James River. And then that'll propel, of course, the varsity football team into their road match against the Knights in Buchanan.
Yeah, I think definitely a busy week. We talked about it just a moment ago, like towards the end of the season for the volleyball team for Floyd County. We'll see how Carroll County's progressed, or how far they'll go in the postseason with like the district tournament and regional tournament. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But definitely, like you said, a busy week. 2 road games for varsity football next week. Hopefully we'll be able to provide our updates and analysis on those 2 games, and hopefully we'll get you some post-game interviews next week as well. Signing off for this edition of Citizen Sports Talk, I'm Jacob Smith.
Caden Reinhard.
And thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week here on Citizen Sports Talk.